Welcome back to our Lent series. This is week number 2. Now, last week we introduced a very simple principle, which was, in the way of Jesus, death gives way to resurrection. And we did one simple thing. We asked that at 3 p.m., that the only liquids you drink from that time on for the rest of the day be water. We didn't mess with anything with food, but that one thing would be like a symbol of purity, clarity, and simplicity. A small sacrifice to start getting us aware. The other thing I asked you to do is try to identify some things in your life that had low restorative value. Meaning things that you do that take up a lot of time, but they don't do much to rejuvenate you. So hopefully you've identified some things that you want to do less of, and we'll introduce another challenge for you to add as we continue to keep the water from 3 p.m. on throughout the Lent series. So let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 10, for our principle this week. It says we always carry around in our body the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. And we read this last week, and I talked about integrating into our conscious lives the reality of Christ's death and resurrection. And I want to read another verse to you from Romans that talks about being clothed with Christ. The idea of being clothed with Christ is throughout the New Testament. It would be a great Bible study for you to do. But in Romans 13, starting in verse 14, it says, "Rather, clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ, and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the flesh." So I want to talk a little bit about this clothing mindset. And I use the word mindset because clearly it's not literal. It's a metaphor for how we perceive ourselves, how we see ourselves being surrounded by Christ, literally with Him as our clothing. Now, that's something that has to occur. If we're going to work at that, it's something that we're going to have to use our minds with. So it's a mindset. Our thinking as Christians and what goes on in our heads is important. It reveals a lot of things about our heart and our fears and our desires, but we often don't treat it as something that needs to be dealt with in order for us to be transformed and conformed to Christ. So I want to specifically address that today and give you hopefully some really practical things that you can do this week in order to start working on clothing yourself with Christ and changing the way that you see yourself and the way you see God. Now, we use a term sometimes called the theater of the mind. And I want you to start paying attention to your thoughts. If you're like me and like all other humans on earth, then your mind is like a stage where a lot of different scenes are happening. For example, it might be just that you hear things like self-talk, vague voices, "Oh, I'm worthless," or "I'll never get things right," or whatever that may be. It might be that you replay conversations in your head that happened that day or at times in your life, and you replay them and you say the things you wish you would have said in that moment. Something I often do is I try out conversations. I think if I need to talk to one of my kids about something, I might try out that conversation in my mind. The mind is ultimately where we lust for things, where we fantasize about how things could be, or And that might not be bad in the sense that you might envision your life in a better way, in a more Christ-like way, but those fantasies can also go into bad things. So what we've got is a mind that is prone to all kinds of scenes that are connected to all kinds of beliefs. And what we want to do in this Lent series is take some time, and instead of making room in physical spaces, I want you to make some room in your mind for God. I want you to create a space where only God happens in that space. And what we're going to call it is a sanctuary. I want you to create a sanctuary, not in your house or in your closet or somewhere physical, but in your mind. And it is a place where you can go and simply be with God, where instead of being captive to all the thoughts that can go through our minds, we say to ourselves, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to walk into the sanctuary. And I'm going to just be with God in a sanctuary. So with an extra 10 minutes a day, so hopefully through identifying things in your life that are of low redemptive value, we're going to take 10 minutes a day of that away. And in that 10 minutes, we are going to work on this one exercise, which is we're going to spend time creating a sanctuary. And here's some guidelines for what would make a really good sanctuary for you. And by the way, this isn't something I necessarily thought of. I've been reading books on Christian meditation and some things on neuroscience for many, many, many years. And this is a meditative practice. This is putting our minds on God. It is a Christian practice. So the sanctuary, here are some tips on creating a really good sanctuary for yourself where you can be with God. You want to choose a place that you have been to in your life, a place that you love, and that for your own mind, you can only associate that place with good things. You want to choose a place that when you decide to think about it, you can very vividly and clearly see what that place is like. If you choose a beach, it has to be a beach you've been to, and you know what that sand is like. You know where the lifeguard posts are. You know the layout of how everything is. You can kneel down and reach down and grab some of that sand. You can feel what that sun is like. You can smell what the ocean air is like. It might be the backyard of a lake house. It could be your grandmother's home in her backyard where you grew up. For me, it's a very specific park that I absolutely love in Romania. And the good thing about my place is that on occasion I can go to Google Maps and I can actually look at pictures of it and kind of navigate my way through it. But I really don't need that because I've spent hundreds of hours in that park in real life, and I have a really good image of what it's like to walk through that park. So you have this place, and what I want you to do is spend some time there, but I want you to enter into that place in a very special way. In other words, you're kind of signaling to God, I want to go meet with you in the sanctuary. And you're signaling to your own brain, it's time to be with God in the sanctuary. And here's how I do it. I simply stop, I close my eyes, and I begin to breathe in a certain pattern. I breathe slowly and steadily through my nose to fill my lungs. And then I open my mouth and I just let my lungs collapse and let the air come out. And I'll do 2 or 3 of those breaths. And that signals that I'm ready to go now into the sanctuary. And then I simply keep my eyes closed. I continue that breathing pattern. And I imagine myself walking in this place that I've created that's only for me and God. And what do I do in that place? Well, I simply exist there with the presence of God. You don't need to do anything. Now, distractions can come. When distractions come, I don't want you to take an aggressive or frustrated attitude toward those distractions. I want you to use a phrase when those distractions come, which is, "Oh well." And you watch the distractions come in, and you say, "Oh well," and you watch them go out. And you don't allow yourself to get frustrated. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I'm at the point where I rarely get distracted. I've spent a lot of time thinking and meditating. Now, once I've located myself there, and my spirit is quiet, and I'm breathing, then I'll decide that I'm going to pray. And if you're not familiar with prayer, I would suggest that you either do the Lord's Prayer, and if you don't know the Our Father, the Lord's Prayer, I'm going to teach you another prayer that you can use there that I use all the time. I say it, sometimes I say it several hundred times a day. It's called the Jesus Prayer, and it goes like this: Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. I meditate on every word of that. Lord, Jesus, Christ, mercy. Now, when I am asking God to have mercy on me, it doesn't mean I'm asking just for forgiveness. It means that I'm asking for the mercy of patience, for the mercy of peace, for the mercy of strength. All of those things God gives us through His mercy. So this is a very important exercise in our world where our minds are being rushed and they're being taken over by so many thoughts and images. It's a difficult world to be a Christian in, partly because it stimulates the mind far too fast. And if we're going to clothe ourselves with Christ, we're going to learn to slow down, take off the jacket of the world, and slowly put on the jacket and the clothes of Christ. And one way that I have found tremendous relief in, and I've communicated with the presence of God in so many ways through so many difficult moments in life, is to take 2 or 3 minutes or 10 minutes and be in my sanctuary where I simply center myself and I walk. This is what's called a spiritual exercise or a spiritual discipline. Like learning how to play guitar or shoot a basketball or perform any other type of thing, it requires time, energy, repetition. It is a skill for your soul. So we're asking that you just spend 10 minutes extra a day that you carve out and do this. So I'm really excited. Let me know the things that you're learning. And we will see you next Wednesday. Again, we do have an optional Zoom on Monday nights, and that link has gone out. I'll continue to provide that link, but from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. on Monday nights, I'll be available in that Zoom for discussion and interaction about these things. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.